Gets easier every time. Hey you! Stop! And there goes my sound assassin. Ooh, a disguise. That'll come in handy. Must have been the wind. Stikes. Hello community. Been a while, hasn't it? Well, let's face it, the last year of Hitman support hasn't been exactly the greatest. I mean, it is to be expected. Like I said back in January, this is year 4 of Hitman. We should not expect that much. Still, Hitman is in a great position overall. From freelancer to the story mode, escalations, featured contracts, sniper missions, elusive targets and elusive targets arcade. There's a ton of content in this game, both for veteran and beginner players. However, for us veterans out there, we know that that wasn't always the case when it comes to Hitman 3. As a matter of fact, I'll go as far as to say that the first year of Hitman 3 support was an absolute disaster. But before we get into that, there is a reason why I'm making this video on this specific day. It's my birthday today, and because of that, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna place 3 digital codes throughout the video. All of them will contain $10 that, when redeemed on Steam, will go into your Steam wallet. Call it a little gift for the early birdies out there. It is a bit ironic when you think about it though, because one of the biggest controversies when it came to Hitman 3's release was in fact Steam, though it would be one of many. Hitman 3 would make its official debut trailer on the 12th of June 2020. At first, the majority of players would be very happy with the game's announcement, as they had been eagerly awaiting the sequel since Hitman 2's end of support back in 2019. The trailer showcased some of the new maps coming into the game, as well as teased some of the main plots that will be revealed in the story. And with the supposed return of the cinematic cutscenes from Hitman 2016 that were sadly lost in Hitman 2, fans were generally happy with what was revealed and couldn't wait for the final product. However, that happiness wouldn't last long. For starters, the game would be announced as an exclusive for the Epic Games Store for the whole first year of its existence. Now, usually that's bad, because most casual players like having all of their games in one place, usually Steam, instead of spreading them out into multiple different stores, as well as the fact that the Epic Games one is far more leaky when it comes to personal data and lacks many of the features that have been present for years on the Steam platform. However, there's a much bigger problem when it comes to Hitman itself and the way it works. Originally, if you owned Hitman 2016 and then chose to buy Hitman 2, all of the maps and DLC content from Hitman 2016 would be automatically copied into Hitman 2, where you'd be able to access and play the entirety of Hitman 2016's content with improved graphics and bug fixes. However, now that Hitman 3 was exclusive to Epic, where neither Hitman 2016 nor Hitman 2 had ever released before, it meant that the transfer would become a lot more convoluted, as it would have to be made through IO Interactive's website. But getting your Hitman 2016 and Hitman 2 maps and DLC into Hitman 3 was only one part of the problem. In Hitman 2, players had spent an enormous amount of time unlocking different suits and weapons, from sniper rifles and pistols to lockpicks and coins. Hitman games have tons of unlockable weapons. However, because Hitman 3 was releasing on a new platform, it meant that you either had to start from scratch or do a one-time progress transfer from your Steam account to your Epic one, in which you can get your Hitman 2 Steam unlockables into your Hitman 3 Epic inventory. However, there is one fatal flaw in that process. If you had already started playing Hitman 3 and unlocked some of the suits and weapons that it had to offer, as soon as you do a transfer from Hitman 2, you will lose all progression earned within Hitman 3. It's one of the reasons why I personally never transferred. And on top of that, it would be announced that the game will be always online, meaning that if you don't have a stable internet connection, you won't be able to unlock any gear or progress through a level's mastery. Some people had hope that at least because of that, IO would focus on creating multiplayer modes similar to Ghost Mode from Hitman 2 and give players a way to connect and play together. However, all that would be shut down from the developers themselves, saying that Ghost Mode will not only not make a return, but there are not any multiplayer modes expected in the near future, making this a fully single-player game with a permanent online requirement. Leading up to release, I think it's fair to say that more people were concerned about Hitman 3's problems rather than the launch itself. Despite me mentioning the whole progress carryover and map carryover, none of those things were available or even mentioned at the time of release. At that point, IO Interactive was going around writing articles about how they're trying their best to come up with a solution for players. But Hitman 2 had never released on the Epic Games Store. I'm not even sure if Hitman 2016 had. This was a brand new platform for players as well. And just think about how this looks from a player's vision. You've just been rug pulled at the last moment from your main platform Steam, where all your Hitman games and other games reside, to a brand new platform, Epic, one that most players, including myself, hadn't really used that much. And you had no clue whether you could take your progress with you, you had no clue whether your maps could be taken with you, or if you'd have to pay for special access or packs. You really didn't know, because guess what? Neither did the developer at the time. It was a complete mess. This is how you lose people for good. I don't know how much money Epic paid IO Interactive to keep the game as an exclusive, but it could not have been enough to make up for the amount of players that got lost in translation. Still, we gotta talk about the launch, and let's just say, as you may imagine, it was quite problematic too. The base game would release for a total of $60, with a deluxe variant costing another $30, for a total of $90. If you were to buy that more expensive edition, you would receive a few minor treats, like developer commentary, some digital art and soundtracks, but most importantly, the deluxe escalations, a package of 6 escalations in total, most of them a callback to previous characters from Hitman lore. Escalations are missions with 3 levels to them. It's like playing a mission 3 times, except every time you get a new target, or a restriction, or a different objective. It's very different from escalation to escalation, but the formula is mostly the same. As far as the gameplay of Hitman 3, it had taken quite a massive step, not necessarily in the gameplay of Agent 47 himself, as the only real change was now he could scale much faster, but more so the maps themselves. Freedom of approach has always been a key when it comes to Hitman replayability, and no game does it better than Hitman 3. Every single main map has a multitude of ways it can be penetrated, as well as different shortcuts that, once unlocked, will give you access to even more infiltration opportunities. Freedom of approach in Hitman 3 was truly staggering, and in combination with all the other gameplay components that had been perfected throughout Hitman 2016 and Hitman 2, it was obvious that Hitman 3 had finally been able to put all of the pieces together and reach the very peak of the formula. Sadly, its developer IO Interactive could hardly allow players to enjoy that formula in peace, as just barely after 2 months of the game's release, they would reveal a trailer for the 7 Deadly Sins, a DLC of 7 unique escalations with cosmetics and weapons attached to them that will cost players a total of $30 as a package or $5 per escalation as a single. To say this didn't go down well would be a giant understatement. The whole idea of a deluxe edition is so that people can buy it thinking that at least the first 10 months to a year of content will be included in the package. However, just barely a month after the last deluxe escalation was released, IO was already revealing a brand new set of escalations DLC that would cost $30 no matter which edition of the game you bought. Furthermore, they would only reveal the escalations and their rewards when their time for release arrived. So at launch, you had no clue what you were even paying for, outside of the greed escalation. They would drop monthly, with some of them having either useless reskins with ugly suits, or cool suits with extremely overpowered items that almost force you to buy it. And if you didn't spend those $30 for that extra DLC, you were basically left to play featured contracts and whatever was left day one. It was disgusting levels of over monetization, a clear example of how a live service game should not be run. However, with Hitman 3's epic exclusivity coming to an end, the game would finally release on the Steam platform, and it would be another all-time low for IO Interactive, as they would price the game at $60 despite being a year old, while Epic would put it on a 50% discount at exactly the same time. Sales on the Steam platform were absolutely abysmal, and people were even more dissatisfied than before. IO Interactive's greed and over-monetization had finally caught up to them. The game was review bombed and dead on arrival. Despite the excellent gameplay and map design, the extreme live service elements this single-player game was inflicted with were simply too much to handle. So, Hitman... No. That is way better. Way better. Now, Hitman 3's release was up there with Anthem and Marvel's Avengers as far as just another live service ridden, dead on arrival game that was just waiting to get shut down. It was horrible. Not only did IO Interactive screw players once by making the game exclusive to Epic, but then that first year of support through the 7 Deadly Sins pretty much finished off and eradicated the rest of the player base. It was a clear showcase that even the best made games can be turned into failures with enough live service over monetization. Going into year 2, Hitman was genuinely a ghost game. There was almost nobody left outside of the biggest hardcores. And IO Interactive knew that, so when they went into year 2, they had to change their mentality and make some pretty drastic changes. On the 20th of January, alongside its Steam release, Hitman 3 would launch its official Year 2 roadmap. In it, it would showcase multiple new additions coming into the game: Elusive Target Arcade, followed by Freelancer, and the new map, though very little detail was given at the time. Starting with Elusive Target Arcade, it would release alongside the Steam version. It's a free mode that allows players to go after elusive targets. Elusive targets are a special mission that only appear for a limited amount of time, and upon successful completion, they reward the player with different suits depending on the map he's playing on, and if you beat a certain number of them, you will also unlock legacy suits from previous titles. It was originally introduced into the game back in 2016 as a way to motivate people to buy the game by putting the most desired skins behind a time limit, meaning that if you don't play now, you may never unlock them. Of course, that brought up many problems, as getting certain suits can take years depending on IO's schedule. This mode was done more so as an escalation, where you have a multitude of elusive targets put together, and if you beat them all, you will unlock a reward for said escalation. However, unlocking suits still remains exclusive to the regular elusive target format. This fixes the problem of not being able to replay elusive targets after they've expired, as now you can play them to your heart's desire, even if you don't receive the regular unlocks. On top of that, they would start to create monthly roadmaps, showcasing different items coming into the game for free. By completing challenges every month, players could look forward to a new suit or gadget of some kind. This really helped the game a lot, as it made players feel that there is a future for the Hitman 3 title, where they'll be awarded for sticking around, without having to empty out their wallets. The feeling of frustration of IO's previous live service greed were slowly beginning to shift. But it wouldn't be until July 26th that IO would truly start winning the players' trust back, by releasing Ambrose Island, a new DLC map for Hitman 3 that required no further payment. IO of just a year ago was charging $5 skin packs, and now they were giving players a massive new map with story and new unlockables completely for free. That came as a huge surprise to many, especially because it wasn't advertised as being free. Clearly, IO had realized how thin the relationship had become, and knew winning back players' trust was far more important, as it would also motivate people to buy the game without having to worry about being forced to spend extra cash on paid DLC. But the cherry on the cake for sure would come on January 2023 with a mode by the name of Freelancer. It turned Hitman into a roguelike mode, one with no restarts or retries. For generations, Hitman players have used the rule of Silent Assassin to bring order and peace to the galaxy. To achieve Silent Assassin, one had to operate within perfect stealth, never spotted by their enemies or cameras. No bodies could ever be found. It was a strict but fair way to play Hitman, one that Freelancer completely dumped away in exchange for completing objectives. One of them could be Silent Assassin, but it wasn't necessary. The only important thing was to eliminate your targets, and if possible, do so by achieving your optional objectives. Doing so will reward you with extra credits, allowing you to buy weapons and tools. But if you were to fail, you would suffer the consequences by losing all of your equipped gear and weapons. Agent 47 would also receive a brand new safe house that was fully customizable, giving Hitman players the chance to create their own unique look. Freelancer was a massive expansion, and it came completely for free. It did feature a few premium skin passes, but overall, the expansion itself was free. IO Interactive had won the hearts and minds of Hitman players back. The game was no longer an over-monetized live service mess, but a continuously supported game that people had no reason to fear purchasing. Freelancer would also mark the end of Hitman 3's updates and DLC support, but the game would still receive free drip feed content on a monthly basis. The only new piece of content that came after that were a few new elusive targets, like the drop and the disruptor, which makes perfect sense, given that Hitman was and still is in a fantastic place. So all IO needs to do is simply advertise the game and let it speak for itself. Hitman 3's comeback has been nothing short of a miracle. When you look at where the game was year 1 compared to year 2 and year 3, it sort of speaks volumes to itself. It tells you exactly how a live service game should be run and how it should not be run. Not that any developer is gonna take notice, as we've seen, but still, it says all you need to know. When I left Hitman back in early March, I wasn't really sure if it was the right decision or not. I knew I was leaving a lot of content on the table, and I knew that the vast majority of my audience are Hitman players and fans who probably weren't gonna stick with me. Still though, the variety content I've been able to produce has been such an incredible adventure for me. The fact that I've been able to take every video and treat it like its own little adventure with different creative choices and different input and just make it completely unique on its own. It's been such a gift to be able to do that, and the extreme success they received, especially at the beginning, was honestly just mind-blowing. Of course, sadly, I have not been able to replicate that success late 2024, but gaming as a whole is in a recession right now. I mean, you can see that every single game that's coming out is a giant disaster and is pretty much dead on arrival, so everybody's views are down. Gaming as a whole is sort of falling off a little bit, which is a shame. And although I don't know what's coming next, what I do know is that you guys have allowed one of my wildest dreams to come true. Something that I've only could have dreamed of just a few years ago is now a reality, and that's thanks to you. And I know my channel is just a tiny, small little planet in the overall galaxy of YouTube, but it's my entire world, and I wouldn't have it without you. So thank you for sticking with me and for being with me through everything, through the highs and through the lows, and we both know we've had quite a bit of both. So, until next time, this is the final code. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end of the video. This has been Wild Goat, and thank you very much for watching.